was refreshing, and then everybody started talking about it, and we went back and looked at a couple more films, and then
For decades, Clint Eastwood seemed untouchable, the quiet storm, the man who never raised his voice, never lost control, and never let Hollywood see what he truly felt. People called him unshakable, unbreakable, the last survivor of an era built on grit, instinct, and silence. But at 95, the mask has finally cracked. Behind the calm exterior was a memory like steel, one that never forgot the people who crossed him. 6 names, 6 betrayals, 6 moments that changed the way he looked at loyalty, respect, and the industry he ruled. Some bruised his pride, some insulted his values, some pushed him further than anyone else would dare, and a few left scars he never spoke of again. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on the side Clint Eastwood spent a lifetime hiding, the side that remembers every wound. And once you hear the names on his list, you'll understand why he refused to ever forgive or forget. When J. Edgar was announced in 2010, the pairing of Clint Eastwood and Leonardo DiCaprio sounded like a flawless match. Clint was known for his calm, instinctive directing style, and Leo was Hollywood's most intense, committed performer. People expected a masterpiece. What they got instead was a quiet clash that neither man ever fully acknowledged, but both felt deeply. From the first day of filming, DiCaprio arrived carrying thick folders of research. He brought pages of handwritten notes, marked up FBI documents, historical timelines, and questions about every scene. To Leo, preparation was the key to truth. To Clint, truth came from instinct, not from drowning in details. The more Leo analyzed, the more Clint withdrew. The tension reached its peak during an emotional breakdown sequence. Leo delivered a powerful first take, so raw that the entire room went silent. Clint murmured, "Perfect, cut, ready to move on." But Leo wasn't done. He asked for another take, then another. By the 6th attempt, Clint wasn't even behind the camera anymore. He stood by the craft table with a cup of coffee, expression blank, as if watching a stranger direct his film. A crew member quietly asked if he was feeling all right. Clint didn't look up. He simply muttered, "He's still searching for something I already found." In that moment, the distance between them became permanent. When the project ended, there was no argument and no falling out, just silence. DiCaprio's name came up in casting discussions for years afterward, but Clint always shook his head. He would call him a great actor, but not my kind. They never worked together again, never reunited for an interview, and never exchanged another word. DiCaprio eventually earned the Oscar he had chased for so long, but he never received another call from Clint Eastwood. For a man who believes the truth of a performance is captured in one honest moment, not 7 attempts at perfection, the partnership was over before it ever had a chance to grow. Clint Eastwood has worked with people from every corner of the political spectrum, but there was one person he could never tolerate, and that was Michael Moore. Their clash didn't begin with a documentary or a debate. It started with a single moment on a stage in 2005. Clint was accepting an award at the National Board of Review when he looked out at the audience and growled, "If Michael Moore ever shows up at my door with a camera, I'll kill him." The room let out a nervous laugh, hoping he was joking. But Clint didn't crack a smile. He stared straight ahead and walked off stage. Even in Hollywood, people who knew him understood one thing: he didn't bluff. That moment wasn't a joke. It was a warning. The tension between them had been building for years. Clint believed deeply in old-school values, discipline, quiet service, and respect for the men and women who put on a uniform. Moore's style, especially in Fahrenheit 9/11, felt like the opposite to him: provocative, theatrical, and intentionally divisive. Clint once told a friend, "He sees soldiers as pawns. I see them as heroes." That was the root of the conflict. It wasn't politics. It was respect. But everything exploded years later when Moore mocked American Sniper online. He compared it to a Nazi propaganda film, insisting the comment was just a joke. To Clint, jokes didn't land when they targeted people who risked their lives. Those close to him said he was furious, not because of the film, but because Moore crossed a line Clint guarded fiercely. The dignity of the people he believed deserved the most honor. From that point forward, Moore's name became one Clint would not acknowledge. Producers, journalists, and even colleagues avoided bringing it up around him because they all knew what would happen. The conversation would stop. Clint would shut down. The mood in the room would shift instantly. Clint Eastwood has forgiven rivals, critics, even former enemies, but he never forgave Michael Moore. In Clint's world, disagreements are one thing, disrespect is another, and once someone crosses that line, there's no going back. Few names in Hollywood can irritate Clint Eastwood, even after 9 decades in the industry, but Barbra Streisand is one of them. Their feud wasn't about politics or personality, it was about something much deeper, the very soul of filmmaking. In the early 1980s, when both of them were transitioning from acting into directing, the tension between their creative approaches became impossible to ignore. Streisand was legendary for her meticulous control. She would push for 40, 50, sometimes even 60 takes to capture a single moment exactly the way she envisioned it. Her sets were known for precision, perfectionism, and endless adjustments. Clint Eastwood was the complete opposite. 2 takes, maybe 3, and then he moved on. He believed instinct created honesty. If the first take didn't feel real, the 50th wasn't going to fix it. Their conflicting philosophies quickly turned into quiet resentment. They never worked together directly, but they circled around each other in the same creative spaces, and their reputations clashed long before they ever did. By the early 1990s, their unspoken rivalry was an industry inside joke. When The Prince of Tides failed to earn Streisand a Best Director nomination in 1992, Clint was overheard telling a friend, maybe if she made decisions faster, she'd finish more than 3 films in 15 years. That comment spread through Hollywood like a spark hitting dry grass. But the real breaking point came with The Bridges of Madison County. Streisand had been attached to direct the film for years, but her perfectionism slowed everything to a crawl. Eventually, she stepped away from the project. Clint stepped in, rewrote the script, directed the movie his way, quietly, efficiently, without hesitation, and delivered one of the most emotional films of his career. It earned Meryl Streep an Oscar nomination and restored faith in the story. For Clint, that was all the closure he needed. He never criticized her publicly, but he also never forgot the frustration her style represented. In his eyes, she became the symbol of everything he believed was wrong with modern Hollywood: indecision, overthinking, and the death of instinct. Since then, they've avoided each other entirely. No collaborations, no joint panels, not even a polite word in passing. In Clint's world, filmmaking isn't about control, it's about truth. And Streisand's method violated every part of that belief. When Tommy Lee Jones walked onto the set of In the Line of Fire in 1993, it didn't take long for Clint Eastwood to sense trouble. Jones had a reputation for intensity, sharp, unpredictable, and fiercely committed. Clint was the opposite. His sets were quiet, calm, almost meditative. He believed in simplicity, efficiency, and respect. 2 men with commanding presences, 2 towering personalities, and only one environment to control. It was a recipe for conflict from the start. From the first week, their working styles collided. Tommy Lee Jones wasn't someone who followed quiet direction. He questioned lines, rewrote moments, and pushed scenes far beyond what Clint believed they needed. While Clint moved through scenes with ease, capturing honest performances with just a few takes, Jones kept going long after the word cut. Crew members described it as watching 2 bulls locked in the same pen, neither willing to step aside. The breaking point came during a heated confrontation scene. Jones towered over Clint, staying fully in character even after the director called for the scene to stop. He continued delivering his lines with the same intensity, staring directly into Clint's eyes as if the camera were still rolling. The entire room froze. Clint simply stood there, expression unreadable, waiting for the moment to end. When it finally did, he leaned toward his assistant and whispered, "Life's too short for that kind of theater." Without another word, he walked off set. That was the moment the decision was made. It didn't need to be said aloud. Clint Eastwood wasn't going to work with Tommy Lee Jones again. Not on a sequel, not on a cameo, not even on a distant, harmless project. Anytime Jones's name came up in future casting discussions, Clint would shake his head and say the same thing. "Great actor, but we don't speak the same language." They have never reunited, never shared a panel, never even acknowledged each other publicly. To some, it looked like a simple clash of personalities, but to Clint, it was deeper than that. There is room for only one calm center on his set, and in his eyes, he was the one who called the shots. Clint Eastwood has always been known for his patience, but Richard Burton came closer than anyone to pushing him past it. When they filmed Where Eagles Dare in 1968, the issue wasn't ego, artistic conflict, or creative differences. It was something Clint respected far less: work ethic. Burton was in the middle of his whirlwind marriage to Elizabeth Taylor, a relationship filled with late nights, heavy drinking, and public drama, and every morning the consequences arrived on set right beside him. While Clint showed up early, dressed, focused, and ready to work, Burton often arrived late, slurring his lines, trying to steady himself between takes. Crew members remembered watching Clint stand there in complete silence, his disappointment visible even if he never said a word. Each ruined take chipped away at any respect he once had for Burton's legendary abilities. The tension peaked when Burton blew the same line 10 times in a row. Exhausted and increasingly frustrated, Clint finally muttered, "I'm getting paid by the picture, not by the hour." The crew let out a nervous laugh, but Burton didn't find it amusing. He knew exactly what Clint meant, and so did everyone else. The final break came when Burton was overheard calling the movie a paycheck job. To Clint, that was unforgivable. He believed every film, big or small, deserved absolute commitment, even an action movie, especially an action movie. In Clint's eyes, showing up unprepared wasn't just unprofessional, it was disrespectful to everyone else who cared enough to give their best. Years later, when someone mentioned Burton in an interview, Clint didn't bother sugarcoating his feelings. "Talented guy," he said. "Wasted talent." That was all he offered and all he ever needed to say. The movie became a hit, but the relationship never recovered. After filming ended, Clint never worked with Burton again. He never spoke of him publicly, and he never softened his stance. To Clint Eastwood, silence is a sharper judgment than anger, and once Burton crossed that line, the silence that followed was permanent. Clint Eastwood rarely spoke about the 1969 musical Paint Your Wagon, and the reason wasn't the film itself, it was Jean Seberg. She wasn't just a co-star, she became the person Clint quietly vowed never to work with again. Their time on set revealed a clash deeper than artistic differences. It exposed a level of emotional instability Clint had never dealt with before and never wanted to deal with again. Seberg was already under intense pressure when the film began shooting. Her political activism had put her under FBI surveillance, and the stress affected her every day. Some mornings, she would show up radiant, charming, and ready to work. Other days, she locked herself inside her trailer for hours, overwhelmed by anxiety, fear, or exhaustion. The entire production revolved around her mood swings, and Clint, who valued focus, punctuality, and emotional discipline, found himself growing more frustrated with each delay. Crew members remembered moments when she stopped mid-scene to question her motivation, spiraling into long discussions about what her character really felt. Clint would stand there silently, staring at the floor, waiting for her to finish. It wasn't anger on his face. It was disappointment, like he was watching the film slip out of his control, one unpredictable moment at a time. Instead of sharing responsibility for a troubled production, Seberg publicly criticized Clint, calling his performance wooden and suggesting he held the film back. To Clint Eastwood, who had spent months trying to keep the project from falling apart, that wasn't just an insult, it was betrayal. After that, he never spoke her name again. If anyone brought her up, he would change the subject, light a cigar, and quietly walk away. Even years later, when news broke of Seberg's tragic passing in 1979, Clint remained silent. Friends who were close to him said he looked genuinely saddened, but he never softened his stance. At one point, he was overheard saying, "Some people aren't cut out for the work, and I don't need to deal with it twice." It was the closest he ever came to acknowledging the pain behind their fallout. For Clint Eastwood, loyalty and discipline were non-negotiable, and Jean Seberg became the reminder of what happens when those values collapse. Ability to stay calm in moments that would break most people. But behind that unshakable exterior is a man who never forgot the people who crossed him. Each of the 6 names on his silent blacklist represents something deeper than conflict. They represent a violation of the values he guarded his entire life. Leonardo DiCaprio pushed too far in search of perfection. Michael Moore mocked principles Clint considered sacred. Barbra Streisand challenged the very foundation of how he believed films should be made. Tommy Lee Jones tried to match him in dominance. Richard Burton wasted a talent Clint believed should have been treasured. Jane Seberg turned her pain into public blame. To Clint, these weren't small disagreements. They were defining lines. Once they were crossed, the relationship ended. Not with a fight, but with the kind of silence that can sting far deeper. His approach may seem harsh to some, admirable to others, but it has shaped every chapter of his life and career. Whether that silence was strength or stubbornness is something only he truly knows. Maybe he protected his peace. Maybe he shut out people who could have changed him. Either way, his choices forged a legacy as complex as the man himself. Now it's your turn. Was Clint Eastwood right to walk away, or did his silence go too far? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you want more stories about the hidden conflicts, secrets, and legends of Hollywood, make sure you subscribe. There's a lot more coming.